What is up, everybody? Welcome to a early Sunday edition of Crunch Time, sponsored by Fanduel. We've got early lock on the Fanduel MLB slate today, with the Detroit and Minnesota game being moved up an hour and a half due to weather. So some of you may be catching the tail end of this or catching us even on replay if you're playing with the DraftKings lock, but we'll try to get you all the information you need regardless of what site you're playing on today. But that's the reason for the early show. Minnesota and Detroit will be starting at 12:10 Eastern time. So make sure you don't have any dummy lineups out there with players that you don't want from that game. I am Justin Van Zuden. I will be hosting the show for you today. Got two sharp guys alongside. We've got TJ Zwarich on one side. TJ, what's going on today?
Still getting my bearings and waking myself up, if I'm being honest. It's only 9:30 right now where I am, so got up nice and early, did the expert survey at about 6:30 this morning, and then took a little nap. And now here we are, and so I'm ready to dive into this slate. I love me some day baseball, but I usually like when it starts a little bit later.
My Cardinals have already been playing for an hour and a half over in London, so it's definitely an early start to the baseball day if you are in the Pacific time zone, for sure, with everything we've had going on this weekend. We got Andre alongside as well. Andre, what's going on today?
Not much, just hanging in there. Down here in Atlanta for the weekend, enjoying some family time. But ready to break down on the slate and hopefully have everyone come in first place on FanDuel and everyone else come in second place and elsewhere.
Well, there you go. We'll see if we can help everybody alongside to the top today. And don't forget, if you are in a legal sports betting state, you can sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook. Take advantage of their awesome new bonus offer. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply on that, but check that out at the FanDuel Sportsbook. All right. Even though we've got an early start, we do have an interesting slate for pitching today. And, you know, the analysis really isn't going to be much different with FanDuel and DraftKings because the first game that's on the slate, which is the only one that's on the FanDuel slate that's not on DK, is Minnesota and Detroit. Obviously, the Tigers aren't the team we love to target bats from. The total is 8 in that game. So, you know, maybe there's a FanDuel play here or there from that game, but otherwise, the analysis is largely going to be similar for the two sites today. And we've got a lot of good pitching on the mound today. So, TJ, I guess your kind of general thoughts on the slate, and then if you want to dive into pitcher.
Yeah, I think I plan to differentiate, not differentiate, it's not the right word, but spread out at pitcher today. Really mix and match my pitchers because there's so many great ones, and then really hone in on my stacks. And if I were playing a bunch of lineups, I'd probably have quite a bigger pool of pitchers. And then in terms of stacks, I'd be keeping it pretty tight, focusing on Atlanta and just a couple others. And then maybe find a way to get different with my pitchers, but if not even getting super different, just making sure that I have as many combinations as I can of Atlanta stacks with these different great pitchers today.
Yeah, for sure. And when we mention those great pitchers, I mean, we've got Glass now, we've got Cole, we've got Uvalde, we've got Wheeler, we've got George Kirby, we've got Corbin Burns going today. So, I mean, I'll stick with you, TJ. Where are you kind of looking? I know you mentioned kind of spreading it out a little bit with the pitchers, but a couple of your favorites out of that top group.
So Glass now is going to be my favorite guy today. I think he's the one I'd want to go to in a cash game setting. He's the one I'd want to go to a single entry setting, and he would be my highest owned guy if I was running a ton of lineups today. It is just a little bit different from site to site dependent on the prices. I think Kyle Bradish all the way down at 6.4K makes for a very interesting play going up against Seattle. That they've been hot, but they also are still a team that strikes out a lot. And so he's somebody that I think makes for a very interesting tournament play. Yusei Kikuchi going up against Oakland. Kikuchi's a guy that could give up 5 home runs by the third inning, but he could also strike out 10 in 5 or 6 innings today. So very much a high risk, high reward player, which is exactly what you're looking for in tournaments anyway. Picking up less than 10% ownership on FanDuel I'm very interested in getting to some Kikuchi today. He's my favorite SP2 on DraftKings, where he's 7.1K. He's not as sneaky over there, but I still think he's an absolutely phenomenal play. And those are going to be my favorite guys, but I'm still going to be mixing in Cole, Eovaldi, Perez. And then on DraftKings, like a guy like Perez, who is only 8.5K, is going to be a much bigger priority than he is on Fanduel.
Yeah, definitely. He's the one guy. Kikuchi as well is a bit of a price difference, but Perez is the one that stands out to me as well. Andre, where are you looking with all these top tier pitchers we have going today?
Yeah, I pretty much almost echo the same way with TJ with Tyler Glass now. Definitely number one option probably to go with today. I'm going against Kansas City here. Garrett Cole kind of concerns me just because I know the amount of hard contact he gives up a little bit with the fly ball rate, but he still has enough to strike anybody out any given day. Kikuchi, I'm still undecided on him. TJ kind of convinced me a little bit, but I I really I wasn't expecting this Oakland lineup to be what it is. I really thought Seth Brown was going to be there today and Noda, but they are not in the lineup, so that kind of makes it a little bit harder for me to want to go with them. But go with Kikuchi. I mean, go with them and go with more with Kikuchi, but they still only have a strikeout rate of only 19%. So I'm kind of torn between the two, but I see this the reason why you want to go with Kikuchi there. And I don't mind it today in tournaments. Kyle Bradish as well, pretty much one of the guys I definitely want to try to get to. And I don't also mind Eovaldi a little bit here. Yankees do tend to strike out a good amount two of the night, hitting the ball into play. So I don't mind taking a shot with him as well.
Yeah, Kikuchi's not a guy that I play often, but I think in this matchup, given how much upside he potentially has against Oakland, I think I'm in the camp of playing Kikuchi today as well. With that price tag on DraftKings, and you want to spend up on the bats, makes sense as an SP2. I think the discussion on FanDuel is a little bit more difficult just because you only get that one pitcher slot. And, one of these top end guys is probably going to have a dominant performance today. But I mean, the guy that I think I got to go underweight on in tournaments is Glass now. You look at, he walks a lot of guys. He strikes a lot of guys out. And what that does is it racks up a lot of pitches in a hurry. And we know the Rays aren't going to push him to, 100 plus pitches with his injury history and where they are in the standings. And he could very easily get to 95 pitches in 5 innings. I mean, he's pitched 5 starts and he's only gone more than 5 innings once. And you've got a slate where you've got all these top end pitchers, but yet you have Glass now at like 30% ownership on FanDuel, 40% ownership on DraftKings. And you've got other guys like Wheeler, they'll push him to 100 pitches. Cole, they'll push him to 100 pitches. Uvalde, they'll push him to 100 pitches. So, to me, I mean, Glass now, I think he's fine in cash games, or if you're building a bunch of, 100 lineups, you probably don't want to completely fade him. But he's the guy that I probably end up underweight on in GPPs because I like Uvalde, I like Cole, I like Wheeler a lot today. So just a really interesting discussion because we have so much high-end pitching talent today. TJ, other thoughts on, and your thoughts, I guess, on potentially, going underweight Glass now in GPPs?
The strikeout upside is just too strong for me to pull the trigger on going underweight on him today. Like, he's the type of guy that I feel like even if he goes 5 innings, he might still have 10 strikeouts and be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate, especially going up against this Kansas City team with a 24.5% strikeout rate today. They only have 2 players in the lineup under a 20% strikeout rate. And so he's just, the pitch count might get up there, but like there's only 2 lefties in this lineup as well. So you can basically run it up to a 33% strikeout rate for him. His ISO to lefties so far this year, and it's obviously a limited sample size, but it's 400 to lefties and it's 0.0049 to righties. And so he's giving up a 65% hard hit rate to lefties. He's giving a 34% hard hit rate to righties. So the fact that we have a almost entirely right-handed lineup for Kansas City makes me just I can't go underweight on him today. He's going to be my guy.
I'm just hoping that, we can get 25 pitch first inning and 20 pitch second inning, even if he gets some Ks, maybe he only ends up with like 7. It's definitely a scary fade, but I just don't love the massive chalk on a slate that's, so deep with pitching today. But I certainly know that I'm obviously in the minority there.
From a game theory standpoint, I think that makes 100% sense.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
sounds
like,
good now. When he gets 12
yeah.
Ks in 5 innings, it doesn't sound quite as smart.
Yeah.
Andre, any other thoughts on these pitchers for you? Any of the cheaper guys you're interested in before we move along?
No, I would actually like not as that you talked about. I do like Glass now a lot, but if like to me, like in the strategy I like to say with Fanduel from playing on there a lot, you don't have like Kyle Bradish is also a good option because if he has an upside game at 6'4", 6.4K, and gets you like I think even if he gets you 40, he doesn't kill you, or even 30, or even like 36. So, because then at that point you can stack whoever you want as far as team wise. And if those two teams that we really think are going to go off and have great games here, that are in good positions, in good spots, then you're fine. So, I would be willing to take today more chances probably on guys like Kikuchi or Bradish, like you said. Get more exposure to them in tournaments if you're running 150, as opposed to what I would do on a smaller slate. Just because I know the upside is so high, like you were saying with them.
All right, let's go ahead and move the discussion to the bats today. Of course, if you are joining us, we know we'll have some people coming in later with the DraftKings lock being significantly later than the FanDuel lock. So we'll recap everything at the end. For those of you that are tuning in a little bit late, we'll take your questions in the YouTube and in the RotoGrinders Discord, which you can access at rotogrinders.com/Discord. If you are a premium subscriber, we'll prioritize those questions in the MLB Crunch Time chat channel that we have over there. Over there. All right, let's move to the bats. We'll just get things kick-started in general before we go position by position. We'll talk about stacks. TJ, your thoughts on the top offenses that you're looking to target today?
So Atlanta is the chalk. They're the top offense, but they're also going to be the one that I'm looking to go to the most today. Like, this team has been the best offense in baseball all season long, and they're hitting the best that they have all year. They got a great matchup against a guy that has not been able to strike out a right-handed bat whatsoever so far this year in a limited sample. And so I'm just going to be all in. He's like I said, this is obviously an incredibly small sample, but for what we've seen so far, this guy's been getting hit really hard, and that does not bode well when you're playing Atlanta. And so Acuna and Olsen, I think, are the top priorities of the slate, and I'm not going to be trying to fade the chalk there. I'm going to be trying to get different somewhere else. Toronto obviously is the other team on the board with almost a 6 total. They've been starting to put things together a little bit, and by they I mean Vlad Guerrero has homered in 2 straight games at home after not homering at home all season long. So I'm noticing Toronto and the White Sox, we're kind of finally starting to see those two teams play up to their talents a little bit. Not super consistent yet, but these are two teams that we expected a lot more out of their offenses throughout the year. And I think they're finally starting to come together a little bit. So both of those teams I'm interested in for tournaments. A little Boston, I don't mind. A little Cincinnati, I don't mind. And then, of course, Philly's in a great spot as well. But I'm going to leave that to you, Cards, because I know that you really liked them today.
Yeah, a couple things here. First of all, I misspoke on the questions in the MLB Crunch Time channel. So we're consolidating our Discord server channels a little bit. So I just noticed this when I opened it up that we passed along some feedback yesterday to ask your questions in the live stream chat channel, which is up under the featured channels in our Discord server. You can find a link to that within the MLB Crunch Time channel if you go there. But the live stream chat channel is what we will be using for questions from premium subscribers during the show. So my apologies for that. I was a little late to the party on figuring that out. And then on the Phillies, yes. So, I mean, you've got 4 offenses clearly with strong totals today. You've got Atlanta and Toronto, who are obvious there at the top, and then Philly and the Rays. And Philly is probably the team that, compared to their projected ownership, I like the most. Carrasco, he just doesn't have it anymore. I mean, you look at his numbers, he's not striking anybody out. He's walking too many guys. He's just awful across the board. And with everybody going to, the Braves and the Jays, and it's not like I don't like those teams. I certainly do. But it's going to give you lower ownership on a team like the Phillies, and with their power bats, with Harper, with Schwarber, with Turner, with all those guys that, while they've been inconsistent as well, the Phillies are the team that I am riding with the most compared to projected ownership today. So, Andre, what do you like for stacks today?
I named both the stacks that I really do like a lot today. I was hoping one of them were going to be sneaky. Hoping more so the Boston Red Sox going to be more sneakier because I do like them a good amount today. I'll probably be on them overweight the most probably. The White Sox have always let me down dating back to last year. Now they're starting to play their potential. So it kind of makes me want to get on them a little bit, but I have to see. But I also do like Milwaukee a little bit going against Savali. He only has a 15% strikeout rate to righties. And I know he only gets a fly balls at 20%, but the hard contact is there too. The hard contact rate is there too a little bit. So I think I don't mind taking some more shots with Milwaukee in tournaments here. I think they have, obviously the potential with guys like Owen Miller, Willie Adames here. And a couple other guys here to offset everything. So I don't mind going that route, and the hitting weather is actually good there too as well. So that's a sneaky team I like. Cleveland, we know they give the least amount of home runs, and Burns had a bad outing last time. Obviously, there's a lot of fly balls to righties, so I don't mind them a little bit in tournaments, but more as a secondary stack. But the main stacks that you guys named would be the ones I'll be going with probably a more emphasis on Boston today. And Philly.
All right, don't mind some of those calls. Interesting thoughts there. The Brewers, I like targeting bats against Savale, who just doesn't strike anybody out. So interesting calls on some of those, and definitely a lot of different ways you can take your stacks today. TJ, any other thoughts on stacks? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move to catcher.
I like the Milwaukee call quite a bit. That's another team I'm interested in for tournaments. I haven't built my lineups yet. I'm playing 20 over on DraftKings today because of that later walk. I'm just waiting to do it till after the show. But I like that. I like that Milwaukee call quite a bit going up against Savali. And then the one thing I didn't mention that I think is interesting, I kind of want to play Corbin Burns at pitcher in tournaments. He's not very expensive. Nobody is going to be playing Corbin Burns. He had a terrible game last game, but he's been playing a lot better lately. Cleveland's just not good. They don't strike out very much, but they don't hit the ball with very much power either. And so Burns is a guy that's been reverse splitsy. He's struck out more lefties. He's given up a lot less power to lefties. And he's going to see Rosario, Freeman, Arias, 3 righties today. That's it. And so nobody's playing Corbin Burns, and I want to. I think he's a great tournament play today.
Interesting. I'm kind of in the camp that I'm concerned about him. I don't know. The last outing definitely was. I mean, it was just the first inning too. I think he gave up 6 runs against Arizona. But I'm also a Cardinal fan that just doesn't like the guy very much, so I'm a little bit biased against Burns. So I don't really have a strong take on him one way or the other. But I do think that, either playing the Burns sucks, I'm going to play some Cleveland bats, or the nobody's playing Burns, I can play him in some GPPs. I think both of those lines of thinking do have some merit today, because these are the spots where people just kind of tend to ignore both sides. And I mean, the median outcome is not usually what ends up happening. So if you look at one extreme or the other, there's not going to be ownership on either the Cleveland bats or on Burns today. So you could definitely play those angles in tournaments. All right, TJ, catcher, what do you got?
Catcher today, I don't really know if you need to play one of these on Fanduel at all. Obviously, Sean Murphy, first game back in a while, you can 100% play on either site. But outside of him on FanDuel, like if you're playing somebody in your stack, I think it's fine. But I don't really think you need to today by any means. Like if you land on Murphy or Real Muto or even Salvador Perez as a contrarian tournament play, cool. But outside of that, I'm not really interested in playing any of them over there. And then on DraftKings, 5.1 for Sean Murphy, I think is a totally reasonable price tag. He's the top play. And then if you need to punt, Carlos Perez is the guy that's projecting pretty well, batting second today for Oakland. Yes, you may have to worry about some potential pinch hit risk. I don't mind the idea of going with Victor Caratini as a punt instead. Or even like Tyler Heineman for the Blue Jays, even though he's not great. He's 2.1K in a great spot today. So I think from a cash setting, Murphy is worth the pay up today just because catcher is really not strong. And then on FanDuel, he'd be my favorite one to play as well.
Andre, what do you got at catcher today?
Pretty much, obviously, I like Sean Murphy a lot. JC Realmuto is another good option. You guys, Manny Grandal, someone against one of the White Sox I do like to get to against, going against Cutter Crawford here. And I do on the Boston side, on the opposite side, like to get to this, but it'll be only in stacks play. It will be Caleb Hamilton. I know he's batting ninth in the inning, and he's not going to be hardly owned at all. So that's someone I would definitely like to use in my stacks here, at the catcher position here. I think you could go with a guy like Jonah Heim as a one-off here against Garrett Cole, who actually gets up some fly balls here. But other than that, that's really much it. Not going to really be going with many catchers unless they're in my stacks today.
Yeah, and we've only got Murphy and Perez above like 4 or 5% ownership on FanDuel, so certainly don't need to play one on FanDuel unless it's part of your stack. So, all right, let's go ahead and move to first base. Andre, I'll keep it with you. What do you like at first today?
First base, obviously we're gonna go with the headline with Atlanta guy with Matt Olson, but I think Vlad Guerrero is one of the better options. Obviously, one of the better options there, and he's cheaper than both Matt Olson and Bryce Harper, who's another good option here today as well. I don't mind also taking some shots at. To me, the priority is paying down, especially if you're playing on FanDuel. Bobby Dolbeck, he's 2K on FanDuel. That's too cheap of a price for him. And he's going against Banks. I love him today. He's someone that I wouldn't use in my lineups, usually even as a one-off. So I would put a focus on making sure I have a lot of Bobby Dolbeck today as well. And another guy that, yep. And then Andrew Vaughn is another good option that I like to go against Cutter Crawford today as well.
Yeah, I like Vaughn as a salary saver as well. Boston's lineup is really weird because they got, all these guys that they usually play, Dahlbeck, Kike, Ref Snyder in there with the lefty starting for the White Sox. And the White Sox didn't announce their starter till this morning. Not really sure how long Banks is going to go. I do like some of these Boston punts as, guys you can use in cash games, but just be a little bit cautious with your Boston exposure. If the White Sox bring in a righty, fairly early in the game, you might see some lineup changes, kind of like what the Twins did the other day. Boston usually isn't that extreme with it, but they do tend to take guys like Dahlbeck and Ref Snyder out if a righty comes in. So just FYI on if you're looking at some of those Boston values that are popping a little bit more now. TJ, your thoughts on first base?
On FanDuel, I think Vlad Guerrero is probably the second player you're putting into your cash game lineup behind Ronald Acuna today. Like, these Jays just remain far too cheap on FanDuel. 3.4K for a guy of Guerrero's caliber, even though he was hitting the ball poorly, is just too low. And as we see now, he's not hitting that ball poorly anymore. It's always exciting, too, when you see something that it's like prior to this home run, you see like Vladimir Guerrero talking about like, I got to really make sure I do a better job of keeping my right elbow tucked to my body because that's why I'm not getting a good enough launch angle. That's why I'm hitting too many line drives and ground balls because my elbow is flaring. And then the last two games, you see him making a conscious effort of keeping it tight, and he knocks two home runs immediately out of the park as well. So it's always cool to see like something fundamentally change and then for a player to immediately have success, because that's something you can kind of look to go back to. And so Guerrero, I think, is the top play by far due to his price. And then Matt Olson is definitely the top raw points play today. Bryce Harper is very interesting as a spend up as well. He would be kind of probably my favorite tournament contrarian one. I don't mind me a little bit of Joey Votto. And then Andrew Vaughn, like Dre mentioned as well, is a great salary saver. The last guy I'd want to mention for tournaments is Rowdy Tellez, especially 2.7K on Fanduel. I think makes for a great tournament play.
Yeah, I like that call with Tellez too. I'm sure if you're on some of those Brewers bats, he's probably one of the better power targets you'd like to look to today. All right, let's move to second base. TJ, what you got there?
Second base today, it's kind of so even though FanDuel is locking right away, I think it's important to talk about DraftKings because second base is just horrific over there.
It's gross. It's gross. And it's not that much better on FanDuel, but it's definitely gross on DraftKings.
Yeah, so it's like Ozzy Albies is basically a cash game lock because he's still batting second, and he's been hitting the ball really well lately, and that position is so terrible. In tournaments, you could go to guys like Arias or Owen Miller, maybe a little like Marcus Semien, something like that. But this position is not strong at all, and so he is the lock of the slate without a doubt on DraftKings at that second base position. On FanDuel, Gleyber Torres at 2.9K, it becomes very interesting. Julian at 2.7K becomes interesting. You do have these hitters in good spots who are very, very cheap. Even like a Zach McKinstry, Luis Arias is cheaper over there. Owen Miller is only 2.5K. I haven't seen a Pittsburgh lineup. Oh, Pittsburgh lineup is out. And you got Ji-Hwan Bae batting second today, and he's batting leadoff. So I think he's kind of my very interesting. Ji-Hwan Bae would be like my most interesting salary saver.
All right, Andre, anything you like at second?
Second base, from what I'm obviously, I'm going to go with Luis Arias on FanDuel. I think it's a good option. Always hit every day with the way he's hitting. In general, Kiki Hernandez is a guy I do love today a lot of. I want to target someone from this Minnesota game that I do like. I'm going against Lorenzen as Eduardo Julien, as I believe that's how you pronounce the T from TJ. I said it before. But he's someone I definitely would want to go use as a one-off possibly today. But yeah, that's really mainly it. I'm going to use this more so as position, more so for like whatever stack I'm going with. Since it's not that strong today, I'm gonna like just pretty much if I go with like a Toronto guy, I'm gonna go make sure maybe if I'm using Toronto stack, I have a Toronto guy in there. Unless I'm having like a one-off guy like in the early game, like Julian for example. But other than that, that's what I'm going to be doing more so today.
Yeah, definitely a weak position, but we can pivot over to third where at least we have some stronger options available. And Andre, I'll stick with you. What do you like at third base today?
So I really do like to go with Devers. I know it's lefty. Devers. I love him today. I think he's in a good spot. Ellie De La Cruz, who's pretty much everyone's favorite rookie lately. So I like him as well going against Morton. Obviously, everyone's going to be on Austin Riley as well, who probably might go a little bit. Well, he shouldn't go overlooked because he's cheaper. But we got Matt Chapman here as well, who's probably going to garnish the most ownership, at least on FanDuel, coming in at with his price being 3-1 over there. So I do like that a lot today. I also don't mind Royce Lewis here from Minnesota going against Lorenzen. So he's another option that you can go with. Obviously, Jose Ramirez is always a good play any day or any given slate. But yeah, that's really mainly the main guys I'm going to be looking at here on third.
All right, TJ, what do you like at third today?
Chapman would probably be my top guy here. I think he's only 3.1. Or sorry, Austin Riley is my top play on FanDuel, where he's 3.4K. Followed by Chapman at 3.1. Those would be the two that I'd be choosing between. I think Ramirez and Devers, they're both strong plays today. but that price difference over on FanDuel, those few $100, I would definitely rather just save and go down to Riley or Chapman. From a cash setting, the only way I would kind of pick Chapman over Riley, I think, would be if I already had four Braves elsewhere in my lineup, and I obviously couldn't get him in. Elly De La Cruz, I think, makes for a phenomenal tournament play. I think he's awesome. He's one of the most exciting players in the league. It's like he's especially just so fun to watch play because like this dude is huge. This dude towers over every other player on that team, and he looks like a NBA player or an NFL player who has an absolutely beautiful
the MLB version of Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's super exciting stuff, and so obviously that's not really quantifiable into DFS points, but it does make it a little more fun when you watch the game when you're rostering him. And then on DraftKings, Dre talked about Dahlbeck a lot on FanDuel. He's minimum price $2K there, but on DraftKings, Dahlbeck is not first base eligible, but third as well as shortstop eligible, and he's 2.6K, and so he makes for a phenomenal salary saver at this position over on DraftKings.
All right. Let's see. Go ahead and move to shortstop. TJ, what you got there?
So obviously you still have on DraftKings that aforementioned Dahlbeck. If you want to go nice and cheap today at shortstop, you have Elly De La Cruz who's available at that position for tournaments. On FanDuel, I think you're choosing between Turner and Bichette. Bichette's price is slowly starting to climb. It's not as crazy cheap as it has been. 3.5K for him. I think it's totally reasonable to go with Trey Turner instead. That's another one of those things where it's like, say you're stacking up the Blue Jays and you already got four of them in there. Maybe just go with a Turner instead of Bichette and make sure you get all your Blue Jays in elsewhere as a way to get a little bit different today. And then especially that we're kind of projecting right now, Bichette to pick up double the ownership that Turner does on FanDuel. I think he makes for a very, very interesting tournament play. Wander Franco in his first game back yesterday from a little break went yard. He's somebody that has always been more dangerous against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching, and so I think he makes for a strong tournament play as well. And then finally, Willy Adames. We keep talking about these Milwaukee guys in tournaments, and I think he makes for a very strong tournament play.
All right, Andre, what do you got at shortstop?
Shortstop, obviously Bo Bichette is a good play as well. Justin Turner I like a lot. Matt McLean I like too. Going against Morton. I do like Corey Seager here a little bit as well. Wander Franco's another good option. Carlos Correa, pretty much somebody's got some name, and you could, as far as Minnesota, you can make that use that as a mini stack, obviously with Correa and Lewis and Julian today as well. And Buxton as well for the outfield. I also do like Kyle Farmer a little bit today as well. And I don't mind using like Javier Baez as a one-off today.
Yeah, and he would be FanDuel only with that game starting here in about 6 minutes. We will get to your questions in the Discord and in the YouTube here as soon as we get through outfield. Andre, I'll let you have first crack. What do you got in the outfield today?
Okay, so Adam Duvall's a guy I do like as well. Ozuna as well. Kyle Schwarber. Julio Rodriguez going against Bradish. I like him today. Luis Robert Jr. Go down the list a little bit further. I mentioned Buxton, who I do like from the first game. I do like as well. And I also do like Andrew Benintendi going against Cutter Crawford as well. And pretty much a lot of these Boston bats too when it comes to like Masataka Yoshida. I like him as well in this spot too. And I don't mind a little Joey Gallo in Minnesota from the first game.
All right, TJ, what do you got for outfield? And then we'll get to questions.
Acuna and Schwarber, and then you can figure out who your third one is. Those are my two favorite outfielders by a fairly wide margin. They'd be two of the first players that I'd be trying to plug into cash games and then making the rest work afterwards on FanDuel. My third guy would probably be choosing between a 3.3K Springer or a 3K Marcell Ozuna as my last spot. I really like TJ Friedel today leading off. I like Jake Fraley, both of those lefties going up against Charlie Morton. If I need to save some salary, Eddie Rosario is somebody I'm very interested in playing as well. Ruiz is back in that leadoff spot going up against Kikuchi. I think he makes for a pretty interesting tournament play. It's a pretty deep position, but Acuna and Schwarber are going to be my two biggest priorities.
All right. We don't have too much for questions, but just to recap for those of you that might be playing this FanDuel slate, the top pitcher today is definitely Glasnow. Guys like Uvalde, Cole, Wheeler are GPP pivots, and I will be underweight Glasnow in tournaments just because of the ownership and his kind of pitch count limitations, but I fully realize that he could burn me with about 12 Ks in 5 innings. And New Generation 82 did bring up a point in the chat about he missed pitching, and with the FanDuel slate locking, would Bailey Ober be an interesting option? Which certainly definitely a guy that you could consider on FanDuel with his numbers against that Detroit lineup. On a deep pitching slate, he's not a necessity, but definitely a guy that you could play. D. Montgomery is asking for, I believe, Yuri Perez as a pivot, and I think, TJ, you mentioned Yuri Perez as a guy that you kind of liked on DraftKings today.
Yeah, definitely think he's in play as well. I saw somebody else ask in the YouTube chat about the idea of doing an Oakland mini stack. Yeah, you can absolutely do an Oakland mini stack. Kikuchi gives up a ton of home runs. There's no problem with that as well. And then somebody was else asking if you could play Kikuchi in cash, and no, you can't play him in cash. He's a tournament play only on FanDuel, that is. On DraftKings, that's a different story. But on FanDuel, that is tournament play only. And he's the type of guy that you can stack against and play because he could have 10 strikeouts or he could give up 5 home runs. So definitely interested in both sides of that one.
All right. Crazy Coop had also asked in the Discord, I'll throw this one to you, Andre. Does a 4-4 stack of Braves and Blue Jays make you different enough for single entry on DraftKings if you choose a couple of lower owned options? So obviously the Braves and Blue Jays are chalk. But if you throw a couple of lower owned plays in those stacks, is that good enough for you in single entry today?
Looking at the ownership now, I don't see why not. As long as you're still keeping everyone in your all these other guys here like Biggio and Hanneman, yes, I don't mind those guys at all. I would just make sure your pitchers are kind of low too.
Sherman's Tanks asking FanDuel cash. TJ, I'll throw this one to you. Biggio and Schwarber or Garrett Cooper and Harper?
Biggio. Pardon me, and Schwarber.
Sorry, poor timing. I didn't see your sneeze coming.
No, it's okay. It came out of nowhere.
And K-Town's Finest had brought up an interesting thing in the YouTube chat as well. If you are a little bit confused about why we're on so early, FanDuel, Minnesota and Detroit's game got moved up by an hour and a half because they're expecting weather there later this afternoon. So they proactively moved the game up by an hour and a half. FanDuel kept that game on the slate and is locking it right now, basically. DraftKings did not keep that game on the slate in order to keep the lock at the usual 1:35 lock time that we have on Sundays. So that game is red on DraftKings. Don't pick any players from Minnesota and Detroit on DK because it has been removed from the slate. But FanDuel did keep that game active. So that's the reason for the difference and for the earlier show today. Let's see. Andre Steven in the YouTube chat is asking about a Rays stack today.
I don't mind the Rays today. That would be probably just outside of my top 5. They'd probably be listed number 7, but I don't mind it. Lynch does not have as good a high strikeout percentage on both sides of the plate, and does give up fly balls a lot to the right-handers, and there's a lot of righties in his lineup too, so I don't mind it.
All right. Let's see. Looks like we got a couple people typing in the Discord chat. Get those questions in quickly. Lock is right now on FanDuel, but again, only those Minnesota and Detroit players will be locking. TJ, DK Cash, what's your pitching combo?
DK Cash pitching combo is likely Glasnow and Kikuchi.
Yeah, I think that's probably the smartest combo today for sure. Don't mind some of the pivots in GPPs because we've got such a deep pool of pitchers today. You could consider Perez, Uvalde, Cole, Wheeler. There's just lots of guys, even Bradish in play for sure.
And I just want to elaborate quick that I did just talk about how on FanDuel specifically, Kikuchi is not a cash play. It's just because of the price difference. He's not your prototypical I want to play in cash type pitcher. He is very risky. He's very volatile. But on DraftKings, he's 7.1K, and he's just too cheap for his upside. Even if he gives up a few home runs, he's probably going to strike out 5 or 6 guys and be okay with that price tag.
All right, Beaner asking FanDuel GPP. We'll each take this one, and then we'll get out of here. So FanDuel GPP. Andre, who's your favorite stack today?
That's tough. I'm going to say Boston.
Say it's a single entry. All right, he's going Boston. I'm going Philly. TJ, one entry. Who you got?
It's still Atlanta for me, and I'm going to try and find a way to get different elsewhere.
All right, there you have it. Should be a fun slate on a Sunday. My Cardinals actually have a lead right now in London. It's a miracle. We'll see if they can hold on to that before they come home to face, I think, like 3 of the next 4 days they have to face Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, and Garrett Cole. So should be a fun week for the Cardinals coming up. But we'll have you covered for all the weekday DFS slates here at RotoGrinders. Thanks for watching, everybody. And my goodness, I completely went a whole show with TJ without asking for Spidey bombs, and this just hit me at the end of the show. TJ, I didn't clamor for likes enough today. We got 56. Do you have a parting Spidey bomb on a Sunday for the people?
Full disclosure, I absolutely thought about it and just went, oh my goodness, I'm so tired. If we just get through this with no one talking about it, I'm just going to let it go. And so kind of a chalky favorite player to hit a home run today, Spidey Bomb is going
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thief.
Nailed it.
We're just out of here.
That was perfect timing, actually. I was like, I just kind of paused to figure it out, and then it got in. So that was a great little cliffhanger. Favorite player to hit a home run today is just going to be individually Kyle Schwarber. My favorite odds in terms of players on the slate to hit a home run are Bo Bichette for betting, as well as Michael Conforto, who is not in this slate but is playing a little bit later. And then for the kind of lower owned DFS play as well, let's throw in Rowdy Tellez because I think he's going to go yard today.
All right, well, hit that like button on your way out because we didn't hammer on it throughout the show. So if you watched it, if you like the content, hit that like button. Helps us beat the YouTube algorithms. And with that, we'll go ahead and call it a day. It was an early start for all of us here on a Sunday. But thanks to TJ, thanks to Andre for joining me, thanks to Rob for producing behind the scenes. Appreciate everyone's help very much. And thanks to you for watching. I am Justin. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody. We'll see you later.